I want to talk to you about a poem. The work is that of a Basque poet called Xabier Lizardi. It's from 1929. It's short, straightforward. It's almost 100 years old, but I want to apply it to today. I think the poem describes something that a lot of us are feeling right now. Maybe it's not what Lizardi originally had in mind, but it calls to familiar feelings when I read it. The poem is called Bultzi-leiotik, which in Basque means through the train window. In the poem, Lizardi is traveling by train, and through the window of his car he sees the idyllic landscape of the Basque country, adorned by cornfields and orchards. Working the land, a huge farmer comes into view for a moment, who becomes the object of further wonderment. Lizardi would love to stay there in that peaceful place, but the train moves on, and he's forced to bid farewell to the fields and mountains of his homeland. Lizardi's time was different. It was a time in which the Basques were experiencing a renaissance of culture and identity, and in search of traditional Basque values, intellectuals like Lizardi were idealizing town and rural life. But in a similar vein, I think today we're in Lizardi's place on that train. The poem describes our own situation in the face of technology and industry. When I speak to people today, I often see pessimism, a lack of hope regarding the future. That once-present optimism regarding the improvements that technology could bring to our lives is rarely there anymore, and with it is gone any hope for a utopia. We're not seeing many social improvements come from technology lately, and in some cases quite the contrary. The negative consequences of allowing devices to infiltrate our daily routines have become undeniable. It's becoming harder and harder to distinguish what's real from what's fake, and that's very important if we're to have sound principles and make good decisions. This is one of the many good reasons to be worried for the future of democracy, and of course, not to even mention recent wars and related crimes. So clearly there are reasons to be worried, but we get tired of worrying too. It might make us want to escape into a different reality, fantasize about a life without all the things that haunt us. In this context, nature and the simple life become ever more attractive. Sometimes when I read yet another depressing news story or just feel disgusted at the state of the world, I often feel like disappearing and just becoming a hermit in the middle of nowhere. In the same way, through the train window, Lizardi sees what he would want for his homeland. And in the poem he says, "Oh, my land, if only you had me as your own, to work you and fulfilled by your rewards." But the train is modern life, and it physically and metaphorically drags him away from the life he so desires. We can't go back, we can't dial back the progress of technology. That's clear in the poem, and we're also on that train. We're shoved forward, whether we like it or not, by the mad forces of industry. Your hideout longed homeland whizzes madly by, the train and me inside it. As I said, you might want to run away from all this modernity to a little farm, or feel the desire to return to simpler times. But it cannot be, says Lizardi, the worldly red-hot duty takes me away. Goodbye, fields, apples, mountains. Because the train doesn't stop. It's a life which Lizardi neither had nor would have, much like many of us today. In her essay on the poem, Aurelia Arkotxa brilliantly breaks down Lizardi's situation, and in parallel our own. The train is cold machinery, foreign, mad, driven by a blind force that one cannot control. The poet feels himself imprisoned. The window of the train is similar to that of a prison, and it is both a window and a mirror to the desires of the prisoner. Therefore, the train takes the form of a jail cell, and what can be seen through the window is the image of peace and freedom. This is one dimension of the poem, space, but there is another dimension as well, and that's time, The poem clearly puts the past in a positive light, while it puts the future in a negative one. The helplessness of the poet can be seen in this maddening movement, but the train itself is time. It is fate. In the poem Bultzi-leiotik, fate has a negative air, that of impending doom. So there are two key sensations being described, each tied to a dimension of the poem. The first, in space, the feeling of being imprisoned. The second, in time, the feeling of an impending dark fate. In some, we see a dreadful future ahead of us, but feel powerless to avoid it. In fact, Arkotxa goes even further and says that while he's riding the train, the poet is a mere toy of fortune. I'd agree and say that similarly, we also feel like we're just guinea pigs of this so-called progress. Products and ideas are pushed upon us rather than offered. Phones, social media, AI, you name it, but it's impossible to run away from. I do see a lot of pessimism regarding the direction the world is currently headed, especially among my own generation. Now, not everything that's new or unknown is necessarily bad, that's not what I'm saying, but so much is coming at us and all at once. Nobody knows where all of this is taking us, or even who the train driver is, but it's not looking too good. Where's the train going? Where is it taking us? The lack of feeling in control is what scares us. We don't feel that our fate is in our own hands. What could be the answer to all this? It's a difficult question, but for starters, I think we need to recover a sense of what's true and what's good. Distinguishing what's true from what's not is becoming harder, and if that wasn't enough, I don't see enough people actually caring about the truth. So I think we need to renew our respect for knowledge and wisdom. And I don't mean that in a particularly transcendental or philosophical sense, but in our day-to-day. Be critical of the things you do in daily life, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Question the projects and objectives of powerful people. Look into the potential consequences of new technologies. For this, we need good journalism, of course. But let's go beyond that and think for ourselves what we want to do and where we're headed. Just as much as anything else, we need to be interested in both knowing the truth and doing what's right.